Hello, friends, and welcome to the Boot Room, the show where we look ahead to Town's weekend game. It's the first away game of the season, of course, this weekend. Town make the trip for the first time to the new lawn and Forest Green Rovers. Mark, Heath, Andy Warren here to break that game down. And Andy, there's a lot of talking points actually to get into, which we will do in due course. But I guess the first one has to be just that. The first time that Town have ever visited Forest Green. How are you feeling about it?
I've been looking forward to this one. It was one that I looked for when the fixtures came out, and by all accounts, it's great for supporters anyway that it's come when the sun is shining, and it's a bit nicer to get to in the sun because you go along the M4, or maybe if you wanted to down the M5 a bit, and then it's a long old drive through the countryside to get there. But yeah, a fascinating game again about against a club who have kind of rocketed up the pyramid while Town have slowly drifted down it, and they've ultimately met as equals in League One. So should be fascinating.
Should be a great day. More than 1,000 fans will be there. Various things on offer, obviously. Vegan sausage rolls and pies and all manner of things at Forest Green. So looking forward to hearing some fan reviews of that. In terms of talking points, Andy, I guess from a Town point of view, the main talking point is going to be what you do with the team selection. Last weekend, obviously, in the home opener, the season opener, Town looked a very different side when Greg Lee and Tyrese John-Jules came on, replacing Leif Davis and Marcus Harness. So that has been a lot of the chat this week, is whether they've done enough to start them, should they be started, etc., etc. Before you reveal your team, should we just have a little chat around that topic? Because there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there? There's if you're good enough and you've had a good performance on your debut, you should then have the chance to start. That otherwise, what you're playing for. And the other chat obviously is, well, if you can't drop Leif Davis and Marcus Harness, two guys who've been brought in at the summer at decent cost. After the first game, that's not the way to manage them. So which side of the fence do you sit on before revealing your side?
The Greg Lee one's particularly interesting, I think, because he had a good pre-season, really good pre-season. I think we all liked what we saw from him. And Leif Davis flew back from Australia, joined the club on Monday, and was making a debut on the Saturday. So that the fact he started at all surprised me a little bit. But then again, you spend £1 million on a left back, you are going to want to have a go with him. But for me, I certainly wouldn't be kind of rushing just to change it because of the impact they had in the game from the bench. I think they're slightly different cases. We'll talk about the team in a minute. Leif Davis clearly has been brought in to be a mainstay of that defence or wide, whatever the system is. So I'd stick with him. And then you're not just talking about Tyrese John-Jules for the attacking area as well. So there are other players in the mix there, but we'll talk about the team in a minute. I'd stick with Davis though. I think you need to, particularly with him, build that structure, and I think that's an area of the team they'd quite like to be consistent. Greg Lee will have his time, and we can show it's good to be talking about a left-sided fullback that can make an impact from the bench. But for me, I'd stick with Davis, I think.
So you'd stick with Davis. That's interesting. So maybe not Harness. I'm going to be contrary, Andy. All week I've been saying I'd do the same. I'd stick with Davis and Harness for the reasons discussed in terms of motivation and team management after just one game. But I'm going to be contrary now, Andy, and say that I'd start Greg Lee and TJJ tomorrow. Purely, I get the feeling those two guys are going to force their way into the side at some point this season. They're going to be really important players. So let's get them in early doors, shall we, at Forest Green. What, however, you're the man who knows much better than I do. What would you do with the side at Forest Green? Let's see your team.
There's one area, one position that I've been wrestling with a little bit. It's kept me up all night. Hypothetically, what I'd do with this team, I'd keep 10 of the players that started at the weekend. So we'll quickly run through those. That would obviously be Walton, then Donasian, Wolfenden, and Edmondson. Leif Davis, as already discussed. Wes Burns on the right. We know Don Ball is still out injured, so that will mean Morsey and Evans continue in midfield.
Yeah.
Connor Chaplin, and then Freddie Ladapo up front. Marcus Harness, though. That's the position that I've been wrestling with, been tossing and turning at night. And ultimately, I've woken up on the side of the bed where I'd make a change in that position. It wouldn't be Tyrese John-Jules, though. I think I like the idea of him being a substitute. We've spoken quite a lot about the power of substitutions. We did a good bit on the podcast this week, didn't we? Where you were saying about how that could almost become a specialist role in the team.
Yeah.
And I think I'd agree with that. But I would probably in this game go with Sonny Aluko ahead of Marcus Harness. Forest Green are a team that like the ball. Ipswich are a team that like the ball. So logic says both teams can't have the ball at the same time. So when they get it, they need to be really, really careful and really handle that ball with care. And I think Sonny Aluko will help them do that. He'll only play 60 minutes. These attackers are so they're not going to get 90-minute games. These attackers, they're really not. So Aluko to play the first hour, and then your man John Jules maybe could be the jack in the box from the bench after that.
Could almost get to a point where like line changes in ice hockey, couldn't it? Where you literally change like 3 people at a time and bring in an entire different attack, bring them all on together. We shall see. Just going back to the Greg Lee debate, is there an argument maybe in the future to consider if you want to get Leif Davis in the team, which you probably do, given you've paid £1 million for him in League One? Is there an argument to either bring Greg Lee in and put him as left wing back and move Davis back to left centre back, or could Greg Lee fill that slot if you wanted to get him in? Clearly, Edmondson maybe not unnatural at left centre back.
I think that's a conversation we're going to have. But you want George Edmondson in the team, so it's a tough one. Of those two scenarios, I think Lee would be the left-sided centre half, and Davis would be the left wing back. I think it's certainly a conversation we're going to have. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think obviously Donatian, Wolfond, and Edmondson is a pretty well entrenched back three and did a really good job defensively for Ipswich last season, but you can't ignore the fact that there isn't a natural left-sider in there, and Ipswich have been predominantly one-sided, and while it's not the only reason that's been a struggle for them getting going down the left, I don't think having a non-natural ball-playing left-sider has been helpful. So I think it's a conversation that will maybe take a little while to heat up, but I think it's one that we will have as the season goes on.
Okay, let's talk about Forest Green then, Andy. First season at this level. They won their opener at Bristol Rovers last weekend. So they're coming to this game full of confidence. They'll be bouncing. You could argue this is the biggest game they've ever had at the new lawn. They are, cliche klaxon, going to be bang up for what will be their cup final, Andy. And obviously they've just signed Connor Wickham as well, former town prodigy. So nothing can go wrong there. What are you expecting from Forest Green in this game? They're going to come out the gates like dam busters, aren't they? Like really going for it.
Yeah, you'd think so. There's that they play though. This isn't a scenario where we're gonna see Ipswich just like physically mugged. I don't think that they will come. I'm sure they will. They'll be pumped for this. Their first ever game at this level, and it's against a team that once won the UEFA Cup. That's pretty big for a tiny community club in the middle of the Gloucestershire countryside. But they've got principles. They've obviously lost their manager. Edwards has gone to Watford, but Ian Birchnell has come in, who's got a good pedigree himself. He's managed abroad. He's managed in Scandinavia a lot. He replaced Graham Potter at Ostersund's and has managed Notts County and then to Forest Green here, and he likes to play. Their striker Jamil Matt is one that I've always quite liked. Connor Wickham, though, I imagine he'll be on the bench. He's obviously not played any pre-season games. The last time we saw Connor Wickham was in an MK Dons shirt. He came on to play Ipswich at Stadium MK and did absolutely nothing in that game. He obviously the talk going into it was Town against Wickham, but he didn't do anything that day. But clearly he's a good player and will improve Forest Green. I'm sure we'll see a few minutes from him at some point.
Okay, before you get to predictions, which obviously is the key part of Boot Room, let's take a short pause, Andy. What do you think about that? To have a look at some key stats. Right then, Andy, prediction time. It's what the people want. It's what the people are tuning in for. Are Ipswich Town going to get their first win of the season at Forest Green Rovers on Saturday?
Heart and head, this one. It's early in the season though, so I'm going to go with my heart. There's a large part of me thinks Ipswich might draw this game, come over draw, but
Okay.
we're early in the season, so I'm going to slightly lean to the optimistic side and go for a 2-1 away win.
2-1 away win. I think Town are going to win as well. I'm going to say 2-0, slightly more optimistically, but I can see it being a game where Town are under the cosh for the first 20 minutes or so, then sneak a goal to take the lead, and then again are under the cosh for a period, and then finally get a goal maybe on the break with some of those numerous attacking options off the bench and hold on for a 2-0 win. So we're both saying win. Let's hope we're both right. If you're going, enjoy the game. If not, follow it all with us online and in print, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Boot Room.